Today's video is going to be really special because we're diving deep into the Jujutsu Kaisen manga, covering everything from chapter 221 to chapter 233. Basically, we're going through the entire Gojo versus Sukuna battle, start to finish. So grab your popcorn, sit back, and enjoy, because this one's going to be a wild ride. Today, it's the strongest sorcerer in history versus the strongest sorcerer of today. Ryomen Sukuna versus Satoru Gojo. Now listen, this isn't your average battle. On one side, we have the king of curses, Sukuna, who doesn't even know the meaning of mercy. Seriously, for him it's error 404, mercy not found. Sukuna is insanely talented. He understands jujutsu techniques so well that he can copy them after just seeing them once, and even use them like his own. In battle, Sukuna's strategies and tactics are next level. He's always thinking 10 steps ahead, even beyond Gojo. And Gojo? Through heaven and earth, Gojo alone is the honored one. But before we get into chapter 221, you need to know a little about the main players, Gojo, Kenjaku, and Sukuna. Just a quick backstory. Kenjaku is an immortal curse user who can survive by transplanting his brain into different bodies. At one point, he even possessed Itadori's mom. Sukuna? Another immortal curse user. He used to be inside Itadori, but after the Shibuya incident, he took over Megumi's body. Why Megumi? Because of his 10 Shadows technique. A god-level technique that'll make sense soon enough. And finally, Gojo. He was sealed inside the prison realm in chapter 91 thanks to Kenjaku's perfect evil plan. Now chapter 221 kicks off with Gojo's students trying to unseal him, with Angel's help. They take the prison realm to an open field, and Angel uses her powerful technique, Jacob's Ladder, to break the seal. But here's the catch. It's extremely risky. If the entity inside the prison realm is an evil spirit, then unsealing them destroys not just the seal, but the spirit too. And that's exactly what seems to happen. Everyone is stunned, the seal is gone, and so is Gojo. Everyone thinks he's dead, but wait, Gojo isn't an evil spirit, right? Suddenly the earth starts shaking. Cut to Kenjaku. He reveals that he modified the prison realm in such a way that whoever escapes from it gets dropped straight into a subduction zone 800 meters underground. But here's the twist. Kenjaku isn't explaining this to us. He's explaining it to Gojo, because Gojo is standing right in front of him. Kenjaku's shocked. How did you get here so fast after everything I set up? And Gojo, being Gojo, just smirks. But before Gojo can beat Kenjaku to a pulp, a blast goes off. Sukuna arrives. Gojo looks at him and says, You've changed, Megumi. And Sukuna reminds him, I told you, once I took over this brat's body, you'd be my first target. Years ago, a user of 6 eyes fought a user of 10 shadows. No one knows who they were, but both of them died. Sukuna knows if he wants to take down the strongest sorcerer of today, he needs to bring every possible advantage to the table, and so he says it clearly. Gojo, this time, you will die. But Gojo claps back hard. He laughs and says, You think you're gonna kill me? You ran away from Itadori, remember? That moment refers to when Sukuna left Itadori's body and took over Megumi's. Because Itadori was so angry, he beat the hell out of Sukuna without even using cursed energy. Sukuna had no choice but to flee. Meanwhile, Sukuna's assistant, Urame, isn't having any of this disrespect. Furious, she charges at Gojo, but Gojo punches her out cold with one hit. He even throws in a, "Are you good now?" while doing it. Now it's just Gojo and Sukuna left in the arena. But right before the battle begins, Kenjaku jumps in and says, Sukuna, wait. Before you fight him, keep your promise to me. Gojo can't help himself. He mocks Sukuna again. Aw, what a good boy. Listening to mommy? Then Gojo realizes something. It's November 19th, the day he got unsealed, so he makes a bold decision. Let's bathe, get cleaned up, and fight properly. On December 24th. Kenjaku smirks. So you want to die on Christmas Eve? Gojo replies, Nah, I just don't want your body to have 2 death anniversaries. See, Gojo was first sealed on December 24th. Now he's unsealed, and planning to kill Sukuna on the same date. That way, Sukuna won't get 2 anniversaries with the same body. Since Gojo got unsealed, he's been roasting everyone left and right. And honestly, does he even look like someone who's been trapped for so long? Their fight is coming, and it's going to be brutal. But one thing's for sure. This roast battle, it's far from over. Sukuna's assistant, Urame, feeds him 19 of his fingers. She feels sorry that she couldn't find the 20th one, but Sukuna isn't bothered. He knows exactly where it is. Urame doesn't, but there's speculation. The 20th finger might be with Gojo. You see, Gojo probably hid the last finger. Why? Because if Itadori had consumed all 20 fingers, the plan from Season 1 would have kicked in. Feed him all the fingers and then kill him to eliminate Sukuna once and for all. But that didn't happen. Remember how Uralmi got punched by Gojo in the last chapter? She used reverse curse technique to heal herself, but even then, she was still in pain. And this is just after Sukuna was unsealed. Now here's the deal. If Sukuna wants to win this battle, he has to go all out. That means he needs all 20 fingers. Even though one is missing, Sukuna consumes the remains of Shimbutsu Mamuku, which technically boosts his power to the equivalent of a 20th finger. So yeah, Sukuna is now fighting at full 100% strength. And this isn't just any battle. A businesswoman named Yuma is broadcasting this fight through pay-per-view, and guess what? She's already made 5 billion yen just from that. Pay-per-view means pay once, watch as many times as you want, comfortably. Oh, and she's also running online gambling on the side. That's some next-level business strategy. Here we get a taste of real curse technique strategy. It's revealed that curse users can increase their output using chants, hand signs, and even a sort of ritual dance. Gojo does exactly that. And for his first attack, he unleashes his hollow technique, purple at 200% output. Battle begins. Gojo fires his attack from a serious distance. Both him and Sukuna are standing on different rooftops with buildings between them. But Gojo's purple is so insanely fast and powerful, Sukuna doesn't even realize it's coming until it smashes through everything, including the building he's standing on, and takes him down. Then comes one of the most badass scenes, Gojo and Sukuna standing face to face. This one kicks off with some trash talk. Sukuna tells Gojo, "You're just a nameless fish I'm about to slice up." Gojo responds, "Don't think I'll go easy on you just because you're using Megumi's body. In fact, your face reminds me of someone I loved beating up, Toji, Megumi's dad." The fight explodes again. The hand-to-hand combat begins. But here's the twist, it's not exactly hand-to-hand. Gojo is using his infinity, which means Sukuna can't even touch him. Think about it. This is a clash between the two strongest sorcerers alive. It's beyond intense. Gojo, in the middle of the fight, literally lies down on the ground like he's relaxing, and then slams Sukuna into a wall using just his power. Then he increases his own weight to crush him with his feet. Total disrespect. Gojo's force is so overwhelming that the entire platform they were fighting on collapses. But Gojo doesn't stop. He flings that broken piece of concrete into the sky and smashes it into a building. Sukuna manages to dodge just in time and uses dismantle, but Gojo evades it. However, when Gojo looks back, half a building has been cleanly sliced in two by that one dismantle. And that building? It collapses straight onto them both. Now they're fighting inside a crumbling building, throwing chairs, tables, anything they can find at each other. The structure eventually crashes to the ground in a cloud of dust, and both of them walk out of that smoke like absolute legends. Gojo jokes, "I'm blaming all this destruction on you," and Sukuna's like, "Oh really?" Then Gojo remembers, this whole fight is being broadcasted. Yeah, everyone already knows who's wrecking the city. This chapter has less fighting and more explanation, but it's crucial. Viewers start noticing something odd. Sukuna is managing to touch Gojo, even though Gojo's infinity should make him untouchable. How? Sukuna is using domain amplification. This technique allows him to bypass infinity by nullifying Gojo's cursed energy if he makes contact. The drawback? Sukuna can't use his own cursed techniques while in that state. So yeah, it's tricky for both of them. People then wonder, why aren't they using domain expansion yet? That's when Choso drops a bomb. Maybe their domains won't even clash because Sukuna's domain has no barrier. It's an open domain. Everyone is shocked. Me too. As the battle intensifies, you start realizing that nothing in this fight follows the usual rules, and it's thrilling. You see, domain expansion releases a massive amount of cursed energy. Normally, a barrier traps the enemy inside, so the energy hits for sure. Without the barrier, it's like trying to write on paper without having any paper beneath your pen. It just doesn't work. But that's not true for everyone. Sukuna's domain works without a barrier. Same with Kenjaku. Megumi's domain? Sort of. It depends on the environment. Some believe the reason they're not using domain expansion is that it consumes a huge amount of cursed energy. Makes sense. But here's the thing. Yuta reveals that Gojo uses Limitless to control his cursed energy so efficiently, it's almost like he has an infinite supply. And Yuta adds another crazy detail. Sukuna's cursed energy reserves are 2 to 3 times bigger than his own. Gojo or Sukuna. Let's be real. Their cursed energy just doesn't run out. Now comes the real deal. Their domains. And guess what? Both of them use domain expansion. On one side, we have Malevolent Shrine. On the other, Unlimited Void. Here's where it gets intense. The attacks from both domains try to cancel each other out, clashing at full force. And in the end, the stronger domain will be the one left standing. Now here's the twist. Within a barrier, both their domains are evenly matched. That means, inside this space, their domain expansions are on the same level. But remember, that's within a barrier. Gojo's domain has a physical barrier. Sukuna's? No barrier at all, and that changes everything. Sukuna's domain expansion has a massive range, way larger than Gojo's. In fact, it's so huge it practically covers all of Shibuya. And if you recall, domain expansions are insanely powerful inside, but the outer barrier is usually weak. That barrier is what holds it all together. But here's the catch. Gojo's domain has that vulnerable outer shell. And that's exactly where Malevolent Shrine tears through Unlimited Void like it's nothing. Gojo's students are in total shock. Standing inside the Malevolent Shrine is Gojo himself. Sukuna just laughs and slashes Gojo's neck in one clean swipe. But Gojo isn't done yet. He heals the neck wound instantly using reverse cursed energy. Now here's the crazy part. Gojo is inside Sukuna's domain. His own domain has been cancelled out. Everyone watching this legendary battle is thinking the same thing. What's Gojo's best move now? And the answer? Run. Sukuna's domain is an open one. If Gojo can escape its range, he can survive. But right now, that's not an option. Gojo's feeling the burnout. His domain expansion consumed an insane amount of cursed energy, and since it got cancelled, that energy was wasted. Now Gojo can't use any cursed techniques for a while. He can't even teleport out of the domain using limitless. Worse, the burnout has slowed down his movement too. In simple terms, Gojo is vulnerable, and Sukuna doesn't hold back. He unleashes brutal slashes, and Gojo's bleeding from every part of his body. Just look at that panel. And then, Sukuna jumps into hand-to-hand combat. But come on, this is Gojo. He keeps healing from the slashes using reverse cursed energy, and in close combat, he's not just matching Sukuna, he's dominating him. Even Sukuna is impressed. He straight up compliments Gojo. Yuji, confused, asks, "If we destroy the Malevolent Shrine, then what?" Someone explains, "The domain we see isn't completely real. The shrine we're looking at, it technically doesn't exist." But Gojo seems to be focusing on it. He clearly has something in mind. And then, Gojo does something that shocks everyone. He activates a simple domain. Now what is a simple domain? It's a basic technique that can temporarily block attacks from a real domain like Sukuna's. But here's the catch. Gojo is using it while also using reverse cursed energy. To understand how impossible this is, imagine walking north and south at the same time. Can't do it, right? But Gojo, he can. Still, a simple domain won't hold forever. Eventually it breaks, and Sukuna's deadly slashes land again. This time, Gojo doesn't heal. Everyone's stunned. Why isn't he healing? He activates another simple domain, just to buy some time. And now everyone starts asking, did Gojo run out of cursed energy? See, reverse cursed energy consumes twice the amount of cursed energy. Gojo's burning through his reserves. His simple domain breaks again. He takes more slashes, and the words appear, "Is Gojo going to lose?" But don't forget, this is Gojo. He becomes Gaijo. Gojo suddenly hugs Sukuna from behind. And no, not in a cute way. What he does next reveals the insane level of his genius. Gojo stopped healing his physical wounds, not because he couldn't, but because he needed that reverse cursed energy to heal the burnout of his cursed energy reserves. Yeah, he used reverse energy to heal his energy source itself. At this point, Gojo's just doing the impossible. Now fully recharged, he unleashes Reversal Red and slams it into the shrine. The shrine takes damage. But Sukuna, our king of curses, just smiles and rejoins the battle. Uta is speechless. How is this even possible? He asks. Reverse cursed energy can heal physical damage, not energy burnout. To explain, imagine putting something in the microwave. When the door breaks, you can fix it. But if the microwave is overheated, you have to wait. You can't just fix the heat with tools. That's what Gojo just did. He didn't wait. He cooled down the microwave himself. Uta says, I used to think it was impossible, but that's only because I can't do it. Gojo can, because he's Gojo. Even though Gojo's domain had broken earlier, he taunts Sukuna. You're the king of curses? Your domain feels kinda small. Why don't you expand it a bit? Sukuna doesn't hold back. He does expand it. And at that exact moment, Gojo activates his domain expansion again. Now both domains are active. And normally, Sukuna can break Gojo's domain from the outside pretty easily. But Gojo changes the rules, literally. He alters the condition of his domain. Now, it's stronger from the outside. but weaker on the inside. I told you, right? Anything could happen in this fight. Literally anything. And now, Gojo and Sukuna are back at it again, clashing in brutal hand-to-hand combat. In the middle of the fight, Gojo notices something strange. Sukuna isn't just using domain expansion, he's using domain amplification alongside it. Which should be impossible. I'm telling you, this battle is pure madness. But Gojo quickly figures it out. When Sukuna expanded his domain earlier, he embedded domain amplification within the expansion itself. Wild, right? These two are fighting on a completely different level. As they trade blows again, Gojo notices something else. Sukuna's slashes aren't landing on him anymore. And suddenly, Sukuna appears right behind Gojo, making direct contact. Now you probably have two questions. First, why aren't Sukuna's slashes hitting Gojo? Second, why is Sukuna getting so close to him? Here's the thing. Sukuna has temporarily turned off the offensive effect of his domain expansion. So now there's nothing canceling out Gojo's unlimited void. But here's the catch. Gojo's domain only affects those outside his contact. Meaning, Gojo and anyone who touches him directly are immune to its effects. Sukuna, being the genius he is, deactivates his domain's attack and gets into direct contact with Gojo to avoid getting hit by Gojo's domain. Now, you're probably wondering, why would Sukuna switch off his own domain attack? Because he channeled all of his cursed energy outward. And with that, he destroys Gojo's domain again. But this time from the outside, shocking everyone. That's when everyone realizes, just like Gojo changed the rules of his domain, Sukuna has done the exact same thing. But Sukuna isn't done yet. He reactivates his domain attack on Gojo. And this time, Gojo takes noticeably less damage. Why? Because he's using a secret technique, Falling Blossom Emotion. It's a technique that doesn't block attacks entirely but reduces their damage significantly. By this point, Gojo's domain has already been broken twice. But hey, he's Gojo. He doesn't back down. He activates domain expansion again. But this time, he makes it massive, big enough to cover Sukuna's entire range. Now here's something to know. A larger domain actually lowers the chance of landing a hit. The bigger it is, the more likely the enemy avoids it. So, there's a trade-off. Gojo's domain grows so large that it begins to collapse. But then something bizarre happens. Everyone notices that his domain is shrinking, smaller and smaller, until it becomes the size of a football. People start wondering, has the domain become so small that it crushed both Gojo and Sukuna inside it? It's possible. But remember, Gojo is Gojo. Even the prison realm that sealed him was tiny. Yet it held him inside it. So maybe, just maybe, Gojo learned how to compress a domain from that very experience. We soon learn that a domain is just a visual representation. So just because it looks small doesn't mean its effect is small too. Plus, Gojo's domain is tied to space-time itself. So Gojo shrinks his domain massively, not to weaken it, but to make it more precise and effective against Sukuna. But come on, you think the King of Curses wouldn't adapt? Sukuna also shrinks his domain range at the same time. Then suddenly, inside Gojo's tiny domain, slashes start appearing again. And for the third time, Gojo's domain shatters. Both warriors emerge. But there's something else. Sukuna's malevolent shrine is crumbling too. And then we see it, a massive hole torn through Sukuna's chest. Gojo did that. That tiny domain, Gojo used it to wreck Sukuna inside. Sukuna's domain is falling apart because Gojo hit him so hard he can't even maintain it anymore. Now here's the thing. Both of them have used their domains so many times, they're reaching cursed energy burnout. But remember, a while ago, Gojo healed himself using reverse curse technique. His mistake? He did it right in front of Sukuna. And Sukuna understands Jujutsu at a level no one else does. So now, Sukuna might be able to pull off the same move. Need proof? When Kenjaku split Sukuna's spirit into 20 cursed objects, his fingers, Sukuna saw it once, and learned how to do it. Back on the battlefield, hand-to-hand combat kicks off again. And right now, Gojo is dominating Sukuna. But there's something on Gojo's mind. Sukuna is using Megumi's body, which means he has access to 10 Shadows technique. So why isn't Sukuna summoning Mahoraga? Here's what you need to know about Mahoraga. It's a Shinigami that adapts to any attack after getting hit once or twice, or after enough time passes. Imagine Kakashi hits Mahoraga with Chidori. If Mahoraga survives, the next time Kakashi uses Chidori, it'll have no effect. But if Chidori is powerful enough to one-shot Mahoraga, it's over. So Gojo keeps wondering, why isn't Sukuna using Mahoraga? And just then, we see the wheel above Mahoraga spinning, in another dimension, which means Mahoraga is adapting to one of Gojo's attacks, and that could be very bad news for Gojo. Meanwhile, we see him getting more and more exhausted as the battle rages on. 99 begins with yet another domain expansion. And honestly, I'm starting to wonder, what exactly are these two trying to prove? Both Sukuna and Gojo activate their domain expansions at the same time. But the moment it happens, everyone realizes something chilling. Sukuna has become a copy of Gojo. Remember what I told you in the last chapter? Sukuna has the terrifying ability to observe any technique and then apply it to himself. That's how deeply he understands Jujutsu. He mimics Gojo's move and uses reversed curse technique to heal the very structure of his curse. That's how he's able to use domain expansion again so quickly. Just like Gojo, their domains clash violently. Alongside this, they engage in brutal hand-to-hand combat, where Gojo is clearly overpowering Sukuna. In their previous domain clash, Gojo's domain lasted approximately 3 minutes. This time, if he manages to destroy Sukuna's malevolent shrine in under 3 minutes, he gains the upper hand. But guess what? Both domains collapse at the exact same time. And just like that, they dive back into hand-to-hand combat. And yes, they launch another domain expansion, 5th time now. For those who joked that Naruto only spams Rasengan, well, what's happening here? This time, there's a slight but critical difference. Gojo activates his domain just 0.01 seconds before Sukuna. And between two of the strongest sorcerers alive, even a fraction of a second can change everything. That's exactly what happens. Sukuna gets hit by Gojo's unlimited void, and Gojo pierces his chest again, shattering the malevolent shrine. Now, Sukuna is fully exposed, damaged by the unlimited void and unable to heal himself. Gojo moves in for the kill, ready to tear apart Sukuna's lungs, heart, kidneys, everything. But before he can strike, Mahoraga appears from the shadows, the cursed wheel spinning ominously. Gojo thinks, he couldn't have adapted to my unlimited void yet. I'll finish him off in one shot. But Mahoraga does the unthinkable. He breaks through unlimited void in a single blow. Gojo is in shock. The audience is in shock. Everyone's like, what just happened? And with unlimited void broken, Sukuna regains his composure. Gojo starts piecing it together, and the realization hits hard. Sukuna didn't cancel out Gojo's unlimited void with his domain. He didn't even take the damage himself. He redirected all that damage to Megumi's soul. Yes, every time Gojo used his unlimited void, it was Megumi who suffered the consequences. Just a few seconds of exposure left Sukuna paralyzed, but Megumi's soul has endured multiple 3-minute assaults. Can his soul even survive this? Will he still be alive if Sukuna ever releases his body? It's hard to say. His brain might not even be able to handle the trauma. Gojo realizes that Sukuna has figured him out. Sukuna casually asks, "So, got anything to say?" Gojo smiles and replies, "Nothing much. Just enjoying how desperate you're getting to beat me." Sukuna admits, "Your unlimited void is a real headache. My first goal is to shut it down." He then explains how every one of Gojo's attacks hit Megumi's soul, so by now, Megumi must have adapted to it. But Gojo shakes his head. Nope, Megumi hasn't adapted, he's still suffering, and if I activate my domain again, not even Mahoraga can save you. Gojo prepares to unleash his domain one more time, but Sukuna cuts him off. "You can't do it, my boy." And he's right. Blood starts pouring from Gojo's nose and mouth. Everyone is stunned. What just happened? Sukuna, with his deep understanding of cursed techniques, explains, cursed techniques are stored in specific regions of the brain. By repeatedly healing his cursed structure with reverse cursed energy, Gojo has been unknowingly damaging his own brain. And he's done it 5 times now. The spectators realize, if Gojo tries it one more time, he might collapse entirely. And he does. He falls to his knees, exhausted, on the brink of defeat. Sukuna steps in, ready for the final blow. He announces that he's going to activate his domain expansion, with a barrier this time. In simple words, he's not even giving Gojo a chance to escape. He's going to slice him apart and adapt to unlimited void once and for all. Then, Sukuna hurls insults. "You're lucky I wasn't born in your era. Otherwise no one would call you the strongest. To me, you're just an ordinary man." But the moment Sukuna activates his domain, it shatters. Instantly. This time, blood trickles down from Sukuna's eyes. Why? Because earlier, he did get hit by unlimited void. His brain was already strained, and forcing a domain now? It broke him. Gojo stands tall once more and says, "Who was talking trash just now? My students are watching. Get ready to get wrecked." And Gojo unleashes a flurry of punches on Sukuna. Look, at this point, I have to admit, in hand-to-hand combat, Gojo is absolutely destroying Sukuna. So the scene opens with a bunch of people sitting and watching the fight. Naturally, the topic of discussion turns to a burning question. Who all have taken a punch from Gojo? Two people, including Yuta, casually raise their hands. Someone asks them, "What does it feel like?" And they both respond in unison, "We threw up." It's that insane. Turns out Gojo's punch isn't your average punch. There's a whole science behind it. First, he attracts his opponent towards him, then loads up his fist with cursed energy, and only then does he land the blow. So yeah, his punches are on a different level altogether. Back to the battlefield. Gojo is laying into Sukuna. He's slamming him against the wall into the ground, tossing him like a ragdoll. But something's up. There's that wheel floating above Sukuna. Yep, Mahoraga's wheel is spinning, and that means this sneaky devil is cooking up a plan. Gojo goes for another strike, but Sukuna escapes. The wheel, though, turns black, a sign that he's using domain amplification. Gojo goes for another hit, but Sukuna grabs his hand mid-punch and throws him back. That's when Gojo figures it out. Every time the wheel turns black, Sukuna's using domain amplification, which lets him bypass Gojo's infinity, even when it's active. The commentators watching the fight speculate. Has Mahoraga finally adapted to Gojo's unlimited void? The hand-to-hand combat kicks off again. Interestingly, Sukuna still hasn't summoned Mahoraga. Why? Because the adaptation isn't complete yet. But Gojo's no fool. He's figured it out. 3 more spins and Mahoraga will fully adapt to Gojo's domain. So the goal is clear. Gojo needs to finish Sukuna off before that 3rd spin. Otherwise, it's going to be bad, very bad, for Gojo. We're back in the action. Sukuna needs to survive, and Gojo? He's out for blood. The fight resumes and bam, the wheel spins again. Only 2 spins left now. Gojo goes berserk. He goes on a rampage, wrecking everything around him. He's managing to get in some solid hits on Sukuna, but then the wheel turns again. Now there's just 1 spin left. If that happens, Mahoraga will completely adapt to Gojo's domain, and Gojo's domain expansion will be useless. At this point, Gojo's using basic techniques. He's being super careful. If Mahoraga adapts mid-fight, it's game over. Gojo knows he has to be strategic with his moves now. Then, Gojo busts out a move he's only used once before in this entire fight. Cursed technique reversal. Red. As soon as he unleashes it, the wheel turns black again. Sukuna activates domain amplification to minimize the damage. Even though he's hurt, it's not nearly enough to take him down. Then, he switches the wheel back to white. Gojo doesn't attack immediately. Instead, he calmly says, Still hasn't exploded. At this point, even the readers are confused. What is Gojo talking about? The next panel gives the answer. Red hits Sukuna from behind, crashing into him like a guided missile. Gojo had launched Red earlier, sent it ricocheting around the battlefield, waiting for the perfect moment when Sukuna dropped his domain amplification. The hit lands hard, Sukuna is shaken, and before he can recover, Gojo lands a black flash straight to the gut. Sukuna is knocked out. His wheel drops to the ground, but wait, it spins one final time as it hits the floor. That's it. Mahoraga has fully adapted to Gojo's unlimited void, and as if on cue, Mahoraga appears. At this point, both Gojo and Sukuna are running low on cursed energy, which means slower healing. Sukuna is still unconscious from the black flash. But the real problem? Gojo's up against Mahoraga, a being who has adapted to his strongest attack. Gojo takes a moment to think. He's exhausted, his energy's draining, and healing is sluggish. Memories of Toji flash through his mind, someone who once pushed Gojo to his absolute limits. And now, another monster stands in front of him. The fight between Gojo and Mahoraga kicks off. Gojo, being Gojo, goes all in, punching Mahoraga square in the gut, and yes, it hurts Mahoraga. A lot. Earlier in the video, we talked about how hand signs and movements can increase cursed energy output. Gojo taps into that, boosting his output, readying another reversal, Red. But just then, Sukuna wakes up. Gojo is momentarily distracted. Mahoraga intercepts him, but it's too late. Gojo lets Red fly. Now Sukuna has no choice. He has to protect Mahoraga, because Mahoraga has successfully adapted to infinity. But if Gojo manages to land a completely new, never-seen-before attack that Mahoraga hasn't adapted to and knocks him out in one shot, Sukuna loses a major weapon. The battle becomes a wild 2 versus 1, Gojo versus Sukuna and Mahoraga. Mahoraga attacks Gojo up close, while Sukuna launches cursed techniques from a distance. Why isn't Sukuna getting close? Simple. Mahoraga has adapted to infinity. If he punches Gojo, it's going to connect. Sukuna could do the same using domain amplification. but he can't right now. He's focused on using the 10 shadows technique. So Gojo realizes, this 2 versus 1 situation can't last. He needs to eliminate Mahoraga. He thinks, I've used blue enough times for Mahoraga to adapt to it, but not red. So if he's lucky, reversal, red might still work for a one-shot kill. And this is where Sukuna smirks and says, kid, you're clearly mistaken. This isn't a 2-on-1, it's actually 3-on-1. Sukuna fuses Nue and Total Edo into a completely new beast and names it Ajido. Just look at that panel. Mahoraga, Sukuna, and this new fusion beast, Ajido. They look absolutely deadly, but Gojo is still Gojo. He mocks Sukuna, saying, oh, so you're calling your parents into the fight now? And with that, the battle kicks off. Gojo versus Ajido, Sukuna, and Mahoraga. A 1 versus 3 isn't ideal for Gojo, but don't forget, his 6 eyes see everything. The trio attacks him together. Gojo dodges all of it with finesse and counters with a reversal red directly at Mahoraga. It hurts, but doesn't take him down. That's when Gojo realizes, this technique isn't enough to finish Mahoraga. So he says, alright then, time to take you down with my unlimited hollow technique. We see Gojo facing off against Sukuna, Mahoraga, and Ajido. He's struggling. At one point, Mahoraga even slices off his right hand. But somehow Gojo turns the 1v3 into a 1v2 by obliterating Ajido with his blue. And now, the chapter begins right where the last one ended, with that massive blast that wiped out Ajido. Now, it's not 1v3 anymore. It's Gojo versus Sukuna and Mahoraga. Gojo stands tall and, yep, you're seeing it right. He heals his entire right hand, and not just partially, completely. Which is shocking, considering just a few chapters ago, his reverse curse technique was slowing down. So how did he do it? By landing 2 black flashes. Now the black flash is no ordinary move. It requires insane concentration, but it massively boosts both cursed energy and reverse cursed technique. Thanks to that, Gojo heals his arm instantly. And for the first time in 1,000 years, Sukuna looks nervous. The battle resumes. Gojo immediately lands a black flash on Mahoraga. Just to give you context, Gojo's regular punches are already insane. Remember how Yuta threw up after taking one? That's because it's not just a punch. Gojo attracts his opponent toward him and then smashes them with cursed energy. Now imagine that, but with a black flash, which multiplies the cursed energy output like crazy. Mahoraga tanks it, but barely. Sukuna is forced to step in and protect him. Why? Because Mahoraga has already adapted to Gojo's unlimited void domain expansion. And as long as Mahoraga is in the field, Gojo can't use it again. That's what Sukuna fears most. Remember, Sukuna got hit by it for just milliseconds once, and his system glitched. So to keep Mahoraga safe, Sukuna steps between them. But Gojo grabs him, spins him around, and throws Sukuna straight at Mahoraga. Mahoraga catches him, but the moment they look up, Gojo's already charging another black flash. He lands it. Mahoraga tries to shield Sukuna, but the attack is so strong, it sends both of them flying. By now, Mahoraga has taken 2 black flashes, and he's still standing, which just proves how insanely durable he is. Black Flash isn't just strong, it's explosive cursed energy output at its peak. Then, Gojo starts chanting. Whether you call it a mantra or a spell, it's a technique to massively boost cursed energy output. In simple terms, Gojo's cooking something huge, and we already know what it is. At the end of the previous chapter, it was teased that in the next few seconds, the strongest blast in Jujutsu Kaisen history will go off, right in the heart of Shibuya. Something we've never seen before. Yeah, something massive is coming. Gojo's already used blue, red, but purple? He's only pulled that out once so far in this battle, just to shut Sukuna down. So now, as he chants, his cursed energy starts surging. And here's the thing. When a sorcerer is about to unleash something truly devastating, cursed energy literally starts pouring from their body. Other users can feel it. Sukuna senses it too. But Sukuna's not clueless. He's insanely precise. Just by feeling the cursed energy output, he can tell what Gojo is about to do. At first, he thinks it's purple, but then realizes, no, it's reversal red. Gojo's hand glows. Red is ready. Sukuna immediately kicks off his plan. He wants Mahoraga to adapt to red just like he did with blue. Mahoraga hasn't adapted to black flash, red, or purple yet. As Gojo prepares to fire, Sukuna signals Mahoraga, but instead of aiming at them, Gojo aims toward the sky and fires the red. Everyone's confused. Why the sky? Well, remember in the last chapter when Gojo used blue to destroy Ajido. That blue is still floating above in the sky, and now, Gojo just fired red straight at it. You know what happens when red and blue collide, right? Gojo's most powerful technique, Hollow Purple. That's the plan. A lot of fans are still wondering, why did Sukuna summon Mahoraga in the first place? Mahoraga hasn't adapted to the red technique yet, but he has adapted to blue. And that's exactly Sukuna's plan. He wants Mahoraga to absorb blue, to take it on himself, so that only red remains active. Why? Because if red and blue merge, they form purple, and that's a catastrophic attack. Even someone like Sukuna doesn't want to be caught in that explosion. But before Mahoraga can reach the targeted zone, he's intercepted by none other than Gojo himself. Gojo lands a solid punch on Mahoraga, and Mahoraga's instantly like, "Bro, this guy hits hard." Meanwhile, Sukuna uses his piercing blood technique, not necessarily to attack Gojo, but to make sure that red and blue don't combine. He wants to break them apart mid-process. Sukuna launches his attack, but Gojo catches on to the plan. He starts beating Sukuna down, but Sukuna mocks him, saying, "You're too late. You won't get to see purple now." But come on, this is Gojo we're talking about. Of course, he's got something wild up his sleeve. So Gojo begins chanting, not to power up his cursed energy in general, but to specifically boost blue. The result? His blue attack gets significantly stronger, and that extra output means Sukuna's attack won't make much of a difference now. Cut to the spectator crew, watching everything unfold. Yuta suddenly says, "I'm sorry." And you might be wondering, why is Yuta apologizing? In the previous chapter when Gojo's hand got severed, Yuta had said, "That's it. I'm going in to help." But now he realizes something. Gojo only fights at 100% when he's alone. And how does Yuta know that? Because he's just witnessed the strongest blast in Jujutsu Kaisen history. Gojo's chants complete. Red and blue finally merge. And he utters one word. Purple. And then, a colossal blast. A level of destruction so massive, it tears Shibuya apart. When I saw that blast, the only thing I could think was, Sukuna, Gojo, and Mahoraga were all right there when it hit. So, did it get them too? The answer is yes. Gojo kind of took the full brunt of his own attack, intentionally or not. It reminded me of that iconic scene from Naruto, when Madara drops a meteor on the Shinobi Alliance, even knowing he'd get caught in it too. He came back, of course, because of his reincarnated body. But still, the Alliance was decimated. Back to our story, Gojo's purple tears Sukuna apart. His clothes are shredded, his arms been severed, and his body is severely burned. Gojo walks up and says, "Yeah, limitless purple wasn't meant to hit me too, but it kind of did." We see him with burn marks and damage, but he's in way better shape than Sukuna. Why? First, the attack was made of Gojo's own cursed energy, so he could resist it better. And second, by that point, Gojo had already landed 4 black flashes, massively boosting his output and healing capabilities. So, yeah, Gojo's back on his feet, fully healed, while Sukuna can't even stand. Wait a second. Gojo's fine. Sukuna's down. But what happened to Mahoraga? Oh, there he is. He's dead. Yep. Gojo's purple was so destructive, it obliterated Mahoraga. We even see his signature wheel shattering in the aftermath. Just like the narrator warned, this chapter was devastating. An attack so overwhelming, it brought the King of Curses to his knees and sent Mahoraga, the strongest Shikigami in the Ten Shadows technique, straight to the afterlife. And the one who launched that attack? He's now standing tall, smiling at Sukuna. Even Itadori can't help but grin at the sight. Then we get to the final page. It reads, "The result of the battle of the strongest, engraved in Shibuya. Gojo wins." The narrator makes it sound official. Gojo is the victor. But I'm not so sure. Because ever since this battle began, one question's been on my mind. Why is Sukuna called the King of Curses? Throughout this entire fight, Sukuna's only used one of his own techniques. Malevolent Shrine, his domain expansion. Piercing blood? That's not his. It's from Megumi's body. 10 shadows? Also Megumi's. So I keep wondering, when will Sukuna unleash his true cursed technique? Something about this feels off. And that brings us to the start of the next chapter, where we see Gojo in the afterlife. At first, he hopes this is all just a dream. But then he says, "I hope this isn't a dream. I hope this is really the end." But why would Gojo say that? To understand, you need to realize this afterlife moment takes place in a timeline, when Gojo and his friends were still young, when he was probably happiest, before everything went down with Geto and the tragedies that followed. Initially, Gojo's frustrated. Not because he died fighting, but because he never got to tell Megumi the truth about his father. But then, he finds peace, realizing he left that responsibility to Shoko. She'll take care of it. And here's the thing. Gojo is actually glad it was Sukuna who killed him. He didn't want to die of old age or illness. But the real shocker? Gojo admits Sukuna was insanely strong. So strong that even without Megumi's 10 shadows, Gojo still isn't sure he could have won. In fact, he says something that hits deep. Sukuna wasn't even fighting at his full potential. And what saddens Gojo most is that he couldn't give Sukuna the satisfaction of a truly complete battle. You see, both Gojo and Sukuna were so powerful, so far above everyone else, that they lived in a kind of loneliness. Gojo still had students and people he cared about, but Sukuna? All he had was battle. Gojo was a bit upset, not because he lost to Sukuna, but because he couldn't push Sukuna to fight at his absolute full power. In a way, that meant he couldn't relieve Sukuna of the loneliness he was trapped in. You see, for Gojo too, being a sorcerer had once just been about enjoyment and finding satisfaction. Something to keep the loneliness away. And perhaps, deep down, Gojo wanted to help Sukuna escape that same emptiness. But throughout this scene, Gojo keeps repeating that he's dead. That constant repetition only solidifies the idea that he's at death's door. Still, because he has no regrets left, life or death doesn't matter much to him anymore. That's when Nanami tells Gojo something profound. That for someone like him, death wasn't a loss. It was a fitting end. Dying at the hands of someone stronger actually gave Gojo a sense of peace. And just like Nanami once said when he spoke of his own death, he was someone who lived in the past, or focused only on the present. But when his end came, Yuji was by his side. Seeing Yuji made him believe in the future, and he accepted his death with contentment. He knew the future belonged to the next generation. Maki, Yuji, Yuta, Hikari. It's their battle now. And after hearing Nanami's words, Gojo seems to come to the same realization. He's done what he needed to do, and now it's time to pass the torch. These students, his students, are the ones he believes will break their own limits and surpass even him. And so, Gojo wishes that what he's experiencing isn't just a dream or imagination, but actually death. Still, I don't think fans are ready to believe that. After all, he's surrounded by people who have passed away. It feels like the afterlife, but is it really? That's the question. Because if this really is Gojo's imagination, as I strongly suspect, then there's still a chance he'll make a comeback. Especially since the idea of imagination is emphasized repeatedly in the chapter. There's one more thing worth noting. Nobara doesn't appear in this afterlife or dream. So fans are wondering, does that mean she's still alive? I believe so. I think only those who were part of Gojo's youthful days are here. His summer of youth circle. We even see Toji among them, which supports this idea. Before we get to whether Gojo is alive or not, let's talk about how he actually died. Sukuna explains that he never intended for Mahoraga to defeat Gojo. That wasn't the point. Mahoraga was just a model, a learning tool. Mahoraga doesn't just adapt to one thing. He continues to search for multiple solutions to the same problem. And in this case, he tried 2 methods to counter infinity. In one method, he changed his cursed energy to neutralize Gojo's infinity. But Sukuna can't change his own cursed energy the same way, so he couldn't use that trick. What Mahoraga did, though, was cut Gojo's arm with an advanced version of Dismantle. And that attack wasn't targeting Gojo himself. It was aimed at the space around him, the very fabric of reality. Since Gojo's limitless technique manipulates space through cursed energy, Mahoraga effectively cut that space, bypassing infinity. And here's the terrifying part. Sukuna learned to do the same. Even though it was extremely difficult, Sukuna, being the monster he is, mastered that technique by observing it once. Just like he learned how to make cursed objects from Kenjaku, or how he learned reverse cursed technique by watching Gojo. Still, it wasn't easy. After being hit by Gojo's purple, Sukuna was injured badly, so much so that even his own innate cursed technique couldn't heal him quickly. That moment of weakness likely distracted Gojo, and Sukuna, always the predator, took advantage. He launched a devastating attack on Gojo, one so quick and brutal that Gojo couldn't tell if it was real or just his imagination. But here's the catch. Gojo's head wasn't severed. And as he once said himself, as long as his head remains intact, he can survive using reverse cursed technique. Because the core of that technique resides in the brain. When Sukuna told Gojo, "You fought well. I'll never forget you," Gojo smiled. And that smile? It might be a hint that he's still alive. There's been a lot of fan speculation around this. People are pointing to the lotus flower imagery. The lotus, which symbolizes rebirth in Buddhism, appears multiple times in the chapter. And Gojo himself, many believe, is inspired by Buddha. So the idea of Gojo being reborn, it's tempting to believe. But hold on. While theories are fun, I prefer sticking to the facts. And here's a fact. In JJK, flowers don't symbolize rebirth. They symbolize reincarnation. Go back to chapter 1081. We saw a special cover featuring Oro and Ryu, both reincarnated sorcerers in the culling game. The caption read, "The flower that blooms in the sea of death gets a second chance at life." So Gojo, standing at the edge of death, is he about to get his second chance? Maybe. After all, he already survived once using reverse curse technique. And if we're talking reincarnation, then there's only one person in the JJK universe capable of making that happen: Kenjaku. But again, if Kenjaku really pulls something off here, he might try to take over Gojo's body. And if, in the future, his plans don't pan out, he could even consider reincarnating Gojo to fight Sukuna again. Although the chances of that happening are pretty low, if Gojo is still alive, even barely, and can't heal himself anymore because he's lost a massive amount of cursed energy, then only two people could possibly help: Shoko and Yuta. As long as Kashimo keeps Sukuna busy in battle, they might try to heal Gojo. And if, by some miracle, Gojo actually returns, I think he'll only be able to use his cursed technique once, just like Kashimo, who also had a one-time use technique. However, if you look closely at the last panel, it seems like Sukuna may have completely crushed Gojo's body. The blood looks more scattered than in previous scenes, and Sukuna definitely knows that the reverse curse technique starts from the brain. So maybe, just maybe, he made sure to crush Gojo's brain in the end. I know some people are going to hate me for saying this, but sometimes, those tiny details matter. So yeah, I had to mention it. Still, the real question is, does Gege want to bring Gojo back at all? Because let's be honest, killing off Gojo is a huge risk. Viewership might drop. Fans are already furious, especially since Gojo's death was handled off-screen. And Gege added fuel to the fire when a Weekly Shonen Jump comment went viral where he joked, "Due to the break, it feels like I forgot to draw a chapter." People are saying, wait, did we actually miss the real death chapter? What should have been chapter 237 ended up shoved into 236. It could be a publicity stunt. Or maybe Gege genuinely meant that the break made him feel like he missed a beat. Not that he literally skipped a chapter. Interpret it how you will.